What is the saddest video game you have played and why? Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons really got to me. Brothers completely wrecked me and my older sister. When we went to the end of the game, we completely broke down together. I came here to say this. What's amazing is there no actual dialogue in the game. That's not how they get you. They literally take away half your ability to do anything. I physically felt the loss because where I was using two hands before I'm now using one. My god, what a game. So good. Trying to cross the river at the very end and failing multiple times until I finally realized what the game forced me to try made me neatly break down crying. That was such a beautiful way to do it, and my young self almost couldn't handle it. Night in the Woods. What is sadder is what happened to the designer IRL as well. Hellblade. Senua's Sacrifice. I guess maybe not entirely sad, but it left me with a lot of emotions. I don't really play video games. But What Remains of Edith Finch? It's basically this story of a girl named Edith who grew up in family where all of her relatives died in tragic and strange ways and is cursed. In the game she revisits her childhood home and looks back at what happened to her family members. At the end it's revealed that she was pregnant the whole time. And she dies in childbirth. Overall extremely depressing, but such an interesting game that I would recommend playing. Or even just watching a playthrough on YouTube. I loved the brother that worked in the fish processing plant. Was a perfect interactive depiction of mental illness. Wild game. Loved it. The baby drowning got me so upset I had to get up and check the kids' rooms and the bathroom at 11 p.m. Just in case. That scene was the only time I've ever cried playing a video game. When you first walk up to his crib and you see this picture of a baby with such a huge smile on his face. And then the story plays and you find out what happened. And how the dad is narrating and says, wherever he is. I know he's smiling. FK dude, I'm getting a little choked up thinking about it now. To the Moon. 4 hours indie game about an old man on his deathbed trying to fulfill a childhood promise. It's a story about trauma and love and memories, and it uses the video game medium so well to tell it. With just the occasional joke to keep you from immediately killing yourself. Part of its power probably comes from the music. Some really heart-wrenching piano songs in there. Just came out on Switch IRC. Or Steam. Firewatch. Heavy Rain has a really sad plotline of loss and a father's love. The antagonist in the story is going around kidnapping children to torture the fathers. Believing that men should be tested to be worthy of being called a father. This was due to an incident that had occurred in the antagonist's childhood where his brother had fallen through a hole in a storm drain at a construction site. The antagonist tries to get help, but his drunk father dismisses it and beats the antagonist for disrupting him, resulting in the death of the antagonist's brother. Sean Shaaun Shaaun. Jason. Jayyyyyson. Jason. Jasooon. Jason. Press X to say Jason. I don't call it X. I call it Jason. How has nobody said Lo Z? Majora's Mask yet? The protagonist starts off on a mission to find his friend that he went through hell and high water with in the previous game. He never finds her. A later game in the series heavily hinted that he never found her and died. Alone and forgotten. In the Lost Woods. You watch as people literally change over the course of 3 days. Reacting to an Armageddon scenario that everyone sees coming. But nobody can stop or do literally anything about. The main antagonist is a lonely child who looks like he's throwing a suicidal cosmic tantrum. Until it becomes clear that he's basically being manipulated by an insane evil spirit. Who then casts him aside and dismisses him as garbage. The main 3 transformation masks are the spirits of dead people who you need to help find peace. And at the very end, Link leaves, presumably taking the masks with him. The Gorons have lost their champion. Lulu's children will never know their father. And the Deku butler will mourn his son forever. No matter what you do. There's just plain not enough time to save everyone. The threats in each zone are darker than those in most Zelda games. OOT has ancient dragons and shadowy demons being awoken to wreak havoc. But Majora's Mask has a village of people huddling together to slowly freeze to death and a kingdom of proud warriors who have been dead for hundreds if not thousands of years. But still can't find rest. Man. Pretty much all of Ikana is so dark. Kafei and Anju's subplot. And getting the couple's mask. Not lovers. Army of Two. There are few different endings depending on how you finish the game. However, there is one in particular that stayed with me. I was young at that time. So it hit even deeper. Great game. Not the whole game. But a side quest in The Witcher 3 got me to cry for the first and only time so far. To a game. In the quest Black Pearl. You find a black pearl for this guy's wife. You ask him if she liked it. And he says he isn't sure. You press him. And it turns out his wife has some sort of Alzheimer's, dementia and doesn't act the same or remember things. The black pearl was something they always joked about. And he hoped giving her one would sort of bring her back. It doesn't. And I've had family members succumb to the same type of afflictions. And it's heart-wrenching to see. Probably Soma. The ending hit me hard and I proceeded to have an existential crisis for the next week. I've never felt hopelessness like I did at the end of Soma. I still revisit that scene sometimes. I know they try and say there's a good ending, but personally, the original one is what I consider the real one, and that's kinda terrifying. Scrolled all the way down for Soma. The ending was the most powerful moment I've experienced in a video game. Yeah, the story was so depressing that the horror parts of the game were a relief. Spider-Man on PS4. You saw what happened with Doc Ock coming, but man, you got so attached to him that it was still heartbreaking. The "you were everything I wanted to be" line killed me. Also, Aunt May sacrificing her own life for the greater good and Peter having to willingly let her die FG also killed me. Also, take off your mask. I wanna see my nephew. Fuick. What Remains of Edith Finch is pretty sad. It's about a cursed family. Valiant Hearts. The only piece of entertainment I've cried at that I can recall recently. I even knew the ending and it still got me. Dude. Emil Last Letter brings me to years every time. Endgame spoilers warning. Dearest Marie. As the war ends for me, I have no regrets. I've seen too much horror. I hope fate has been more merciful to you. Our time on earth is brief. And mine has been filled with so much joy that I can only be thankful for how much I've been blessed. Most especially for the wonder you brought into my life. This letter is my last. I've been found guilty by a military court for the death of an officer. It was not my intention to kill him. War makes men mad. Though I failed Carl, I know my sacrifice has not been in vain. I fought for my country and my liberty. My honor is assured, since it is the will of God to separate us on earth. I hope we'll meet again in heaven. Keep me in your prayers. Your loving Papa. Always. Even though their bodies have long since returned to dust, their sacrifice still lives on. We must strive to cherish their memory. And never forget. Was looking for this. Few games have made me cry and contemplate life. But this one absolutely broke me. In the end, I sobbed like a baby for a good 20 minutes. The memories come back every time I hear that beautiful soundtrack. Lisa. The Painful. I didn't play it but watched my now husband play it like 4 years ago. The game is about a broken man in search of his adopted daughter through a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Drugs, sacrifice, losing limbs, and seemingly pointless but very much intended quests. The whole thing is dark but with a few chuckles. I wasn't really emotionally prepared for the end of BioShock Infinite. Yeah dude. When everything starts to click and make sense and you realize who you are. Who Elizabeth is. And who Comstock is. Pretty great moment of realization through tears. When the pieces of the ending started coming together towards the end. I was truly impressed and surprised. And not even just the emotional impact of learning who the characters really were. There is always a man. Always a city. Always a lighthouse. The entire idea that every time you died in the game, Elizabeth was pulling you back out of a different timeline and such. DN. Journey. Especially when you go the entire way with someone. Then the long painful trudge up the mountain. Majora's Mask. Something about that game is just very unsettling and yet melancholy at the same time. From sitting in a bar with some people you looked up to at the last few minutes before the world ends to Link's pain of being alone. Just listening to the music gives those vibes. As well as just most of the story and atmosphere. And if you guy into the 5 stages of grief thoroughly, it becomes even more so. It's a beautiful game. It's beautifully hopeless and heart-crushing. Not in the way a good story that makes people die can. But in just a beautiful, eerie way. You are the hero. But there will always be people beyond saving. Including yourself. At the end of the first Walking Dead game. Wouldn't say it was massively sad, just only thing I can think of at almost 2:30 a.m. Keep that hair short. Clementine will remember that. I was just going to say that. Rip Lee. Titanfall 2. DN that Protocol 3. Protect the pilot. Titanfall 2 did have a surprisingly sad ending. Not if you watch all of the end credits. PLSTF 3 Respawn. I will not lose another pilot Cooper. Telltale's The Walking Dead. That ST hit different. Soma. It got thrown under the bus because it was made by the guys who made Amnesia, and it mostly gets interesting by midgame. Everyone expected a scary game. And the scary parts are not scary at all. Especially in the beginning. But holy FG Christ, does that game leave you with your jaw dropped and an existential crisis to haunt you for life. I've never watched the ending credits and think about my existence while listening to a sad piano song ever before. I highly recommend everyone to play it. I finished it in 10 hours on a slow playthrough, so it's not that long. I'm serious. It's so underrated because people expected scary Amnesia 2.0. It's insane. This War of Mine. That's how it is and was for most of the people that lived through it, and some still do, unfortunately. And when you get in a situation where, for example, you're starving, and your best chance of finding food is to steal it from some other innocent person. It's actually hard. I felt bad about doing it. I always went to the military base to get food. Still felt bad. But then I wouldn't have to kill any civilians. Once you learn how to use Roman properly and how to raid the military base, you kind of break the game. Then all you have to do is live with the things you've done to survive. I know this doesn't compare to many new games, but Super Paper Mario was a trip. You'd never expect a Mario game to have that kinda depressing lore. That ending FG destroyed me as a kid. I was thinking, wait, there's no way that's it. But it was. I don't know what was sadder. The story between Bleck and Tippy or his assistant's unrequited love. Mother 3. Not gonna tell you why. Play it. Thank God for the Mother 3 translation team. Still think it's AFG shame that Nintendo hasn't put out Part 3 in the US. Just seeing this mentioned had me clutching my heart again on the brink of tears. FK man. I think that actually takes the cake for me too. True pacifist and genocide runs of Undertale. You know why. Genocide did an absolutely amazing job of making you feel like the scummiest piece of ST that you were. All for the sake of sating your own curiosity. And the grind is so annoying, but then again, soulless endings. OFK, it's Chara again. I found a brilliant few episodes on the psychology of Undertale a while ago. No. It wasn't MatPat. There was something by the imaginary axis that pointed out the ingenious manipulation taking place in a genocide run of Undertale. There's some complicated stuff going on to spur you on. Make you feel like a terrible person. And evoke pity at the same time. It's really clever. The other one was a two-parter by someone whose name I can't remember. It basically pointed out how, spoilers, Chara was only evil because of the player's violence. They were resurrected and forced to watch nearly everyone they know and love be brutally murdered. That, combined with the fragile mind of a child, gave Chara a Batman complex towards violent resolution to problems. For a mainly upbeat game that does everything to stay upbeat, Undertale is pretty deep. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos.